Marathon. Today we're going to talk about how to play Call of Kilforth. This is the third game in the Kilforth trilogy. If you are familiar with Gloom or Shadows of Kilforth, you should be able to play this game. And if you're only looking for the new rules, an overview of those, check out my video that's going to be popping up in the upper right corner right now, because that just covers the resources and the ship's module that are both new to this version of Kilforth. If, however, Call of Kilforth is your first dive into the this fantasy realm, then let's go ahead and get started. Before we take a look at the larger map, though, let's come down here and take a look at our characters and our sagas to better understand what's going to be happening out here. At the beginning of the game, you're going to choose a race and a class card. You're going to combine those together, and that's going to be your character for the game. So in this particular game, I am playing as a Sylph Privateer. Now, the class cards are single-sided, but the race cards are double-sided. So if you choose to play as the female side or the male side, the stats are exactly the same. Throughout the game, you're going to test various aspects of your character. And throughout the game, you're also going to grow these aspects. So red is going to be your fight value, or what you would use in combat. The purple is going to be your study value, or your intellect value. The green is going to be your sneak value, how evasive you are. And the blue is going to be your influence value. You have your starting character and then your class card, and most every card after this that you add to your character is going to have these plus symbols. So you can see that the Privateer class that I chose is giving me 1 additional fight and 1 additional influence. You'll also notice that the Sylph here has a health of 3 to begin the game and a starting gold of 1. So I've got my 1 gold. I've also gotten my 3 hearts here, and I have placed a black heart on each one of those because those are my action points. Your action points are directly tied to your health in this game. So if you lose health, you're going to lose action points. When you gain back up to full health, or as you increase your maximum HP, you're going to increase the amount of actions you can take each turn. Now, most every hero in this game starts with 4 health. The Sylphs are a little different, and we'll show you why now as we take these back off. You can see that they gain an action point when breaking camp. That's essentially when you start your turn. They're going to gain an additional action point, but if they break camp on a plains location, that means you start your turn on a plains location, they're going to gain 2. So they actually start with less health, but have the opportunity to kind of gain an extra action point beyond the normal 4, even early on. Cards that are laid down to the right or left of your character are considered in play and are adding their statistics to your character. But if you ever have to veil a card, which, for example, right here it says veil, steer fate whilst at an ocean location, add 1 success to a test. That's this game's terminology for exhausting the card or turning it sideways. Those statistics no longer add to your character. So if I veil my Privateer class card, I'm no longer adding +1 fight and +1 influence. Cards that are in your hand are considered rumors. These, think of them as items you have heard about, or allies you have heard about, or, in this case, the Golden Foray, a captaincy job you have heard about. So until you actually go to the location that is listed on the card, in this case the Blue Tides, which is somewhere on the larger map, and then reveal this secret, this stays in your hand and is not going to add anything to it. This one actually is a little different because it adds to the Galleon's power, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But anything in your hand is not part of your character yet. This is just a rumor It's like a note or a map, that you have, and you're hunting down that treasure. And once you find that treasure, then you can add it to your character. So, before we move off of our characters here, there's two very important things to understand about action points. Most everything in this game costs action points. So as you spend an action point, you would take off a black heart and put it off to the side. If, however, you lose health, say during a combat on your turn, you have to remove the red heart, any red heart that contains a black heart on top. So you're actually losing an action point as well as in health. If, however, you're down to, you don't have any more black hearts on top of a red heart, then you would simply just take away the red heart. So as you take damage in this game, you're actually going to lose action points immediately as well. Also, there are free actions in this game, so things you don't have to spend a action point for, and those are called deeds. So coming back to our class card here, we can see that as a free action, I can exhaust this card and gain an additional success on a test while on an ocean location. All right, so deed equals free action, veil equals exhaust the card and turn it sideways. At the end of, or at the beginning of every turn, you're going to get all those cards back. All right, let's move on to this unique card here that's unique to the Call of Kilforth, and that's your ship. This is a module that you can choose to play with, or you can play without. They suggest if this is your first game and of any Kilforth that you not play with this module. It basically just adds more stuff to interact with on the map, but doesn't change much of the core mechanics. All you really care about with your galleon is its power. So innate power is 2 for all galleons, and it can hold up to 3 additional power in power tokens right here. But anytime you attack another ship, you have to remove these power tokens, even if you're overspending. You'll notice then back here, my Golden Foray, the title I chose as my one starting card in my hand, will actually increase my base power of my galleon by 2. So my galleon, once I make it to the Blue Tides and discover this title and this captaincy, then my galleon will be a power of 4. You can see it also has some actions and some deeds it can take. So it has something that I would have to spend an action point to take, and that would be gain a power token, make it more powerful. But then as a deed, both having to veil, so I can only do one of these per turn, I can either attack another ship or I can sail, gaining an extra move action point. So that'd be a action point that I would gain but have to spend on movement. This is my ship. If it takes damage, you flip it over to this side, and you can take an action to repair it, or a deed, a free action, to discard a wood to repair it. That's a very brief overview of the ship. Last but not least, very important, we have our Saga cards. So this is always going to be a kind of a 5-chapter or 4-chapter plus finale set of events that is steering your direction in the game. So this is the mission that you are going on as an adventurer, as a hero. Once you have completed this adventure, then you are able to take on the Ancient, which is the big boss, and you defeat the boss and you've won the game. So there's always some flavor text on here. There is instructions on how to complete this chapter. In this case, you would spend 5 gold and 1 Regale Action. That is an action you could take, so you would have to spend an action point to take it. But as long as you have the 5 gold and an action to take, you can then complete this chapter. But you have to have certain keywords in your possession. And this is where the whole flow of the game comes from, is these tracking down these keywords, exploring the map, tracking down cards that fit these keywords. So you can see here we have to have a mountain keyword, a quest keyword, and a title keyword. Well, we have a title card in our hand, so we're part of the way there. If you happen to be playing cooperatively or competitively with more than 2 people, you actually can ignore this keyword. This is only used for 1 to 2 players. I almost exclusively play solo, so I'm always looking at all 3. But also the color here is very important because titles, you can see, are green. Title is green. And so are forest locations. Here we can see one right here. Forest locations are green. So you're most likely to find a title in the forest location, or someone who would give you a loot or reward for defeating them in the forest in the form of a title. You can see that quest is actually 2 colors, and that's because this particular version of Kilforth, Call of Kilforth, replaced Badlands with oceans. So there's no Badlands in this game, it's all ocean tiles. Badlands would be purple in the other games, and so quests would most likely be found in either a Badlands spot or an ocean spot. And then mountain is pretty easy. Mountains equals mountains. So we're going to want to go into the mountain areas to try and find something that we can overcome and then have a mountain keyword in our hand. You either, when you choose to regale and pass a chapter, you either have to have a card in your hand that meets that keyword, and then you'll discard that card, you'll lose it. So I could technically regale right now if I had Mountain and Quest, even though I would never gain this title. I would never gain my +2 because I would discard this card and it would be removed from the game, but I could do it. Or if you have added a card to your character and it's in play, it's on the board, you simply just need to show it. Okay? So that behooves you to, go out there and, track down, in my case, the title, or, complete a quest and add it. But there are certain cards that you can't add to your player area, like enemies, for example. So if it's a mountain troll, for example, that I overcome, and it's going to have that mountain keyword on it, I would just simply hold it in my hand until I use it and then discard it. So every saga, again, is going to have 4 chapters. So you're going to have a series of keywords you're going to have to keep tracking down. Sometimes they look a little differently. In this case, I would have to pass a 6 sneak test at the Blue Tides location, which happens to be where my Golden Foray needs to be. And then we get here. And then last but not least, you have this finale, which means it's something various at every one, but essentially we need to, for this case, defeat this Nemesis Enforcer at Mount Malum, and he's rolling 7 attack dice. Once we do that, we're going to earn a totem for defeating him, which is going to give us a powerful ability to help take on the Ancient. So there you go. Those are the core mechanics of the game. Spending action points throughout the day to move and encounter things. Most everything takes an action to do unless it is a deed. Veiling is turning it sideways, and we're doing all of this to try and complete our saga. So with all that under our belts, let's go back to the larger map and talk about what we can do with these action points. So what can we do with all of these action points while we're on the map here? The first thing and most basic thing is to move. So when you move, you spend an action point and you move either up, down, left, or right. It has to be in an orthogonal direction. You cannot move diagonally unless a specific ability or card gives you that ability. But anytime you move into a location other than this center location, which is the Rimshore Port, the center location of every Kilforth game is going to kind of be a safe place. But as soon as you move into any other location, as long as there's not one already there, you're going to draw an encounter card for that location type. So in this instance, it would be a forest type. So I would go over here to forests and I would draw the top card. In this instance, we have found a stranger who also has the keywords noble and forest. So if we're able to overcome this person, either influence them to join us or defeat them in battle, I would gain them, and this would give me, say, the noble keyword if we needed it. But you're going to go ahead and take this card, you're going to lay it down, and we're going to talk about all of the various ways you can encounter this card in a second. But for right now, we're just focused on movement. So just know that anytime you move into a clear location, you're going to add an encounter card. But we want to see those encounter cards because that's going to help us advance the story. If you are at a location that you start in and say we clear this stranger, however we clear it, she goes away or into our hand, and we are at this location, but we really need a different type of keyword that we're pretty sure we're going to find in the forest. You can search, which just means to draw the next encounter card. You would place it out here, and all of the rules of encountering it would apply the same. The next action is to hide. Now this is a very quick and simple action, but can be very beneficial, especially at the beginning of the game. To hide your character, previous games used to give you this little token that was similar to this but was green. And it was kind of like a shrub you were hiding behind. You'd place it on your character. Call of Kilforth asks you to just lay down your character standee, and that informs everyone that you're hidden. When you take an action to hide, you can then continue moving around the map, and when you move into a location and draw an encounter card, if that encounter card happens to be an enemy, which this one was not, you can actually try and sneak past it instead of having to encounter it and battle it. So hiding is a great way to keep yourself out of trouble at the beginning of the game. If you are hidden and you go to take on someone in combat, you also gain surprise. Since you're hidden, all of a sudden become unhidden, you gain an extra die at the beginning of the battle, only in that first round. But so that's the hidden action. The next action that we want to talk about is confront. So if the keyword, or if the card has the keyword enemy on it, or like we already saw here, if it is a stranger and you have had to add your enemy token to it, let's say I'm playing as purple, this is considered now having the enemy keyword. The encounter with that character happens automatically. As soon as you move into the space with them and you are not hidden, battle is going to ensue. But for all other encounter types, for example, here we have a quest and a stranger, and then there's also going to be a place encounter that you can encounter. So say I want to take on this quest, I can then take the confront action. That would take an action point, and then at that point I need to choose one of these attributes here, either intellect or study or sneak, and take a test against those. We'll talk about tests here in a little bit. And this card here actually has these unique little plus signs on it. That means I actually have to complete a intellect test and a sneak test against this. Essentially, I need to retrieve the plunder. So I need to figure out how it's locked up. So I need to pick the lock with my smarts and then sneak out of the castle. So the plus sign means that you actually are going to have to take multiple confront actions to take on this quest. You'll have to do these cumulatively, but you do them one at a time because you're only testing one stat at a time. But if you are able to overcome them, then you can see you'll gain the trophy. You're also, in this case, you could draw a spell if you wanted to, or if you needed this card, you could keep it in your hand, all to work towards your saga. So that's the confront action. Again, we'll talk about tests here in a little bit. New to Call of Kilforth, you can take an action to gather. That simply means if there's a resource in your location, you simply pick it up and add it to your personal supply. Now these resources can do various things. Food resources, you can gain back 1 HP or heal yourself 1 HP by spending a food resource. A wood resource can allow you to fix your ship if you are playing with the ship module, or if you're not, or if there is an obstacle in your way. So if there is an obstacle on this card, that means I cannot complete this quest until I've cleared the obstacle. You can spend a wood to clear that obstacle. You can turn in a stone at any point for a gold, and you can turn in a metal at any point for a power token that would go on your ship. There's also other ways to pool together your collected resources and build things on the map, but we'll talk about those here in a little bit. But that is the gather action. We just briefly talked about the obstacles. You can spend an action to clear that obstacle. pretty simple. You just simply take an action and remove it from the board. If you had spent a wood, though, to remove it, it would have been free. Because spending a resource is like a deed. It's a free action. If you are at a location that offers a market, the Rimshore Port is always going to offer you a market. You can take the market action. So once you are technically in the market, there's a few things you can do. You can heal. You can spend 1 gold per heart you want to recover, so you can heal yourself. And you can also choose 1 reward deck, so spell, title, item, or ally. You would draw 3 cards from there, and then you would spend the necessary gold to purchase at least 1 of those cards. I believe you can purchase more if you have enough money. You can also sell cards that you have either in your hand or in your play area for half of their gold value rounded down. So that's the market action. You can also rest. So if you are in need to just recover, say, 1 health, you can spend a single action to regain 1 health. You do not gain, you do not gain an action point if you regain a health. It's only at the beginning of your turn that you place heart or black hearts on top of all the red hearts you have on your hero card. So that's the rest action. If, however, you are on death's doorstep and you need a lot of recovery happening, you can spend your entire turn, all of your action points to long rest, and you would regain all of your hearts, all of your health. You would go back to full health, and then your next turn, you would have a full set of action points. And then last but not least, as an action, you can take the Regale action, which we briefly talked about here. That's when you have gotten all the necessary things together to complete a chapter, you pay the necessary gold, and you take the Regale action. That is going to complete the chapter. That's also when you get to upgrade your character. So your character is going to instantly gain a HP, and in this case, they are going to gain an action point. So it would look like this. Ta-da! You're also going to be allowed to upgrade your character. So in this instance, my class is the martial type class. There's 4 different types of classes in the game. I know it's like martial, shadow, arcane, and I can't remember the 4th one, but here you can see there are 2 level 1 upgrades for my martial character. I would take these, I would choose one, put the other one aside. This one happens to be the ability to build the Legion Fortress. So you can see as a deed, a free action, I can sacrifice several resources and build the Legion Fortress, place it on the map, and then it's essentially another safe space for me, similar to the Rimshore Port, which can come in handy as the game goes along, because as these locations fall into gloom, they will, hurt you as if you try and camp there. So, and more nefarious things will happen to you. So that's all of the main actions in the game. I'm not going to cover all of the deed actions because there are numerous deed actions, and a lot of times, they're just listed on the card. Just remember, deed is free. There's also other actions that you can take that you're going to find on card text. So if that card is played out in front of you and you have the card in play, you can then spend the action point to take the action that's on the card. So the discover action is when you are at a location that matches a card in your hand and you simply play it down in front of you. Again, one of those very simple actions to take, but until you get to the blue tides, this card is just a rumor in your hand. Thing I guess we can cover in more detail is we talked about the action to load the cannons on your ship, but let's talk about the sink ship action. Anytime your character pawn is at a location with a ship, you can spend you can attack the ship, which is actually a deed. You exhaust the ship. It's a free action though. As long as your total value is either equal to or higher than the value of the ship, you will defeat it. And in this case, you would flip it over and you would gain whatever's on the back side. So here you would add 1 power to a galleon. Now, as soon as you have attacked a ship and defeated it, you have to remove all the power tokens off of your galleon. So that would immediately then put one right back on for you. As you're moving around, you'll notice that each of these ships has symbols on it up here in the corner, and they each have a different picture. So this is a blue Drake's ship, and this is a the Rose Guard, or the Crimson Guard, Rosen Guard. In this game, you have two factions. It's the Blue Drakes and the Sea Dogs. The Blue Drakes have the Blue Dragon. The Sea Dogs have the Skull and Crossbones. If I am in a location with a Blue Drake ship, I am perfectly safe, and I can even take a market action by paying them 1 coin. So you gotta, grease the palms of the ship. If I am in a location with the Rosen Knights or the Dread, whatever those guys are, they're neutral to me. I can pass through them, it's fine. I can still attack them. They're not going to retaliate in any way. But I cannot take a market action with them. And then the Sea Dogs, who are my rivals, I don't want to end up in a space and end my turn in a space with a Sea Dog ship, because in that point they're going to attack me and my galleon will be damaged and things are just going to go bad from there. So that is the ships module in a nutshell. And the ships module basically just gives you more stuff to interact with, more ways to earn little bonuses throughout the game, but also kind of makes you think about where you're traveling, because until you've started to clear away some of these boats, you have to be very careful not to wander into your rival's territory per se. All right, let's talk about tests now. So most times when you take a test, you're simply going to look at the statistic of your character. So in this case, if I were testing my influence against this stranger's influence, I would look at my cards here and I would see I have 4 base influence plus 1 for my class, so I have 5 influence, and I am trying to test against 3 influence. So that's how much successes I need to gain against that stranger to influence them to join us on our mission. So what I would get to do is roll, in this case, 5 dice. Now I'm looking for 5s and 6s. So in this case, I would have 2, which is not quite there. Anytime you are short of a success, you can spend a fate token, which looks like this blue hourglass, to gain an automatic success, or you can discard an asset that you have. So discard a card that you have in play to gain a success. There's one other way that we could have gained our 3 successes with this roll, and this is the way I actually prefer to play, simply because it just makes the game less about random dice rolls, in my opinion. It is clearly stated in the rule book that if you would like to, you can play where you, as the hero, hit on successes of 4, 5, or 6. So in this case, I know these dice are kind of hard to read, but this is a 4, 5, and 6. That would be 3 successes. As long as we get the same number of successes or more than the test we're going against, we have overcome this card. So in this case, we have influenced this stranger, and then we're going to go through the rewards phase. So what do we get for overcoming a card? We're going to gain gold, or we're going to gain a loot token. In this case, we would gain 1 gold from this stranger. So that may not be worth it to you. In that case, you would go to your bag of loot, which is going to be one of the black velvet bags filled with tokens. You're going to rummage your hand around and you're going to pull out something. In this case, we got Greek fire oil. Discard any 1 ship token. Interesting. There is gold in here, so you could end up with a wash, or you could end up with more gold. The loot is a game of chance. So that's your first choice. There's two choices you always have to make when you're gaining rewards. Do you take the gold, or do you take your chance and draw a loot token? The second one is, do you claim this card into your hand? In this case, we would gain the keywords Stranger, Noble, and Forest. And we might need those keywords to complete the saga. Or we can draw a card, the top card from whatever deck is signified here. In this case, this Stranger is going to tell us about an ally. So we would come over here to our ally deck. We would take the top card. It's going to go into our hands because it's still a rumor. We haven't met the ferryman yet. The mapper just told us about the ferryman. So we gain the ferryman into our hand, and we find out we have to travel to, hey, look at that, the blue tides, to get the ferryman on our side and add him to taking an action, to add him to our discover action. Or you can keep the Stranger in your hand. She's not going to be able to be played down for you, so do with it what you may, but you might need that keyword. So those are the two rewards you gain at the end of the day. So the other type of test you're going to have to take is combat, is a fight test. So say we failed our influence test against this Stranger and we made her mad, and so now she just wants to fight. So instead of being able to influence her, we have to overcome her with fight. So in this case, we would look our two stats, which is not very much here. We have 2 fight. She has 2 fight. Okay, so we're pretty even. That's fine. So I would get to roll 2 dice. She would get to roll 2 dice. In a standard game, we're both looking for 4s or 5s and 6s to do damage. If I had surprise, if I had made her mad and then left, hidden myself, and then come back and found her, then I would have had surprise. Or if I was hidden and an enemy was drawn out, I would have surprise. But if I was not hidden and an enemy came out, they would have surprise. So whoever has surprise gets an additional die. In this case, we're going to say neither one of us has surprise, so we're simply going to roll out these dice. This is where the 2 different colored dice comes in handy, and you can see here that neither one of us hit. All right, she rolled a 1 and a 2, and I rolled a 3 and a 4. But let's say, for example, that we're playing with that other module where a 4, 5, or 6 for me is a hit. So I would take another heart out of the supply. I would do 1 damage to her, but she's got 4 total health. So in this case, as long as I have an action point to spend, I can spend another action point and we can go again. We will roll these out. And in this case, I hit her twice, but she hit me once. So attacks happen simultaneously and the removal of hearts happens simultaneously. So I would put 2 more hearts on her and I would take 1 away from me. Now at this point I can spend a fate token, if I had one, to add 1 more success onto her to ensure that I defeat her. Because in this case, if this were truly the instance, I would be out of health and I would also be defeated. But you always look to see if the card you are attacking, the confrontation card, is defeated first, before you look to see if your character has been defeated. That enables you to gain the rewards of the battle as long as you defeated them before you are defeated. If you're defeated, you're going to lose all your gold. You're going to get knocked back to Rimshore Port. And at the start of your next turn, you're going to gain 2 hearts back and possibly be doing a long rest. If, however, you run out of action points or you choose to flee the battle after 1 round, if you have not completely defeated a card based on its health value, then it's going to fully heal during the night phase. It's going to get all its health back. So you don't have to defeat a card in battle with your fight test in 1 single round, but you do have to defeat it in 1 single turn, except for the Ancient. The Ancient's a lot bigger and more powerful, so they actually retain their damage from round to round. But that is the fight test versus any other normal test, but you're still looking at your base statistics or your statistics and rolling those number of dice and either looking for successes greater than or equal to their stats, or if it's in the instance of a fight, you're looking to damage them enough times to take them out. Quick note about combat or overcoming someone with the fight value. You can see here that, for example, this stranger has the weakness against healing. So if I had a healing keyword on me for some reason, whether it was on my race or my class card, or I add a card, say a healing spell or something like that down the line, if I have the keyword healing out in front of me, I can automatically, as a deed action, overcome or defeat that card. So always look for, when you have a stranger or a enemy, look to see if they have a weakness, and you may be able to overcome them without even having to roll dice. So all of this exploration, gaining cards, tracking down keywords, again, is to advance our saga to the point where we can take on and defeat our saga finale card. Once that is done, the ancient is going to come out onto the board. If you have a deluxe upgrade, that can be represented by a standee, or you could just simply place the card here. In this case, this ancient would come out at the Aberrat Wilds, which is over here. So the ancient would come out right there. At that point, we then need to travel to the ancient, and more than likely over the course of several rounds, either, in this case, defeat him in battle, or we could defeat him in intellect or influence in this case. So they always have two statistics that you can overcome with. They also have an abilities card that gives you certain things like traps that they may lay down, advanced rules, how HP damage stays on them between battle, what happens during the night phase, so on and so forth. Every ancient has a text here that tells you when and where a plot card is going to be placed out. So this is an example of a plot card here. There's some flavor text, and then it tells you how to defeat this plot card. We see that it's going into a plains location. So when a night card is drawn, this card is going, this is a weather card, so that would sit up there and you'd have to deal with this ongoing negative ability throughout the game until another weather card is played. But in this case, the Angel's Cradle, which we know is over here, is flipped over into Gloom. So anytime that one of these cards is a Plains card, we're going to draw a plot card, put it on top of that Plains card, and this is a plot card for the Ancient. Now, we could play the entire game and completely ignore it. All right, maybe we don't want to go through the defeat step, and here it says sacrifice one ally. But if we don't take care of this plot by the time we approach the Ancient, then this ability on the bottom is going to be added to the Ancient. We'll just stack it all underneath, and it makes the Ancient more powerful. So you definitely don't want to just ignore the plot cards. So the hero will spend all their action points. They're moving around the board. When they're finished with their action points or they choose to pass, they will make camp for the night. That means they're just done. They, are going to camp at whatever location they're at. At that point, you're going to draw a night card. We just saw that one, so let's just flip to a middle one here. And we have a place. This is actually kind of a somewhat nice encounter, but here we see that the Cobalt Deep is going to fall into Gloom. And then this is a place, this is a coral reef that's going to be placed down at the Cobalt Deep. And it says, has some revealed text, discard a quest from play, then place this card at Cobalt Deep. So this is now a quest added to it. And there's lots of different types of cards here. Here we have an event that you just simply do what the event says and move on. Here we have an enemy. This looks like Cthulhu here, who would end up at the Blue Tides, which would also be flipped into Gloom. Here is another quest that goes at the Feral Plains. All of these cards, there's one card in this deck for every location. So if you go through this entire night deck, that means the entirety of the map has fallen into gloom and you have lost the game. At the beginning of your turn, after you've gone through the night phase though, you are going to recover your action points. So say you had spent them all and you have 4 health at the beginning of your turn, you're going to gain 4 action points. You would move your hearts back over, and then you are free to continue on with your day, spending your action points like we already talked about. That's pretty much it. There are a lot of, again, smaller rules. This is not a super simple game, but it's not an overly complicated game. If you understand the core mechanics of traveling around, searching for those keywords to advance your saga, and you understand how tests are done, then you're pretty set. You should be able to play this game easily without, certainly you could take out the resources and ship modules and be good to go. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. If you are, say, looking at Shadows or Gloom of Kilforth and wanting to know how to play those games, I do have a how to play video for Shadows of Kilforth, and Shadows and Gloom are almost so identical you could easily watch one and then sit down and play the other. But since there was just enough differences for this, and this is the newer, fresher game, we went ahead and covered an entire how to play video for Call of Kilforth. Other than that, keep an eye out for a solo playthrough of Call of Kilforth coming to the channel next. And if there's any other content you'd like to see covered for Call of Kilforth, please let me know in the comment section below. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.